Hi everyone, I'm Carol Keller, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Illinois in the United States, and I'm coming to you today with some paper pumpkin alternatives. I absolutely love this month's kit. I couldn't wait to get it, and it did not disappoint. And I love it because it's got some of my favorite colors, some of our new in colors, and I have created 3 alternatives. One of them may be a little bit difficult to execute, but I'll put that one last so you can see the other 2 first and then decide if you want to do that 3rd one. So I'm going to turn my camera around so that we can get started. All right, first of all, let me show you the kit. Look at the beautiful colors on this box. Those are some of my favorite colors, so that is definitely what made me excited about this kit. When you get yours, you will see the first thing is that it shows you that it coordinates perfectly with the Expressions in Ink Specialty Designer Series paper, which I would show you in person, but I've used so much of it I don't have enough to show you. But here it is in the catalog on page 131, and it's specialty paper because one side has gold threaded throughout and the other side does not, but beautiful colors that coordinate with the kit. So if you are interested in that, definitely it made something you want to order. You can use it a lot. I will show you. I am going to use some of it for the cards today, so you will see little glimpses of this beautiful, beautiful paper. And then, of course, as always, you get your instruction booklet that has full color photos of the cards. And the first thing you want to do is check the back, and it shows you now. It used to just be listed, but now it shows you exactly what you can find inside your kit. So the first thing I always do is go through and make sure that everything is there. It will also show you some alternatives. So here is use of some of the kit components on our beautiful ombre in color bags, and then a couple of card alternatives. But I'm going to do some that are actually different from any of those. But I'm going to show you what the cards look like as well. Here is the first one. And I love it. There are some wonderful vellum components. Thanks. And then a beautiful flower that, or a bouquet that we're going to work with. Here is the next one. I love this. I love these. We're going to use these today on a card. And last but not least, there's that flower grouping, that little bouquet, and we're going to use that. We're going to do some coloring with it, so hopefully you will like it. I did use some different sentiments on mine, and I always do something on the inside. So I did it even on this card also, something on the inside and always something on the envelope. So for this one, I did this, and then also on the inside, same thing, because that just finishes the card nicely, I think. I do want to show you some of the components. This month's kit actually comes with 2 Stampin' Spots, Evening Evergreen and Bumblebee. Normally there's just one. And it's got some embellishments, some adhesive back sequins, which are really fun and easy to work with, some Evening Evergreen linen thread, and you always get dimensionals if you need them, and glue dots. And then the stamp set, you always get a stamp set, and you can see that many of the stamps are not on here because they're already mounted on blocks ready to go for our first project. But you get a variety of sentiments and then 2 different flowers. And again, they not only coordinate with the designer series paper, the Expressions in Ink, they also coordinate with the artistically inked stamp set and the companion artistic dies, which you can purchase as a bundle. And I love this. I wanted to show too what you can make. This die cuts out this, and then the leaves look like that, and then the rest cut out components that are in the stamps. So lots of wonderful uses for the stamp set and dies on their own, but especially because they coordinate with the paper pumpkin kit. So now I'm going to move the kit out of the way and show you my first card alternative. All right, and here is the first card that I designed. Again, using many components of the kit, and I also, again, decorated the envelope, so that's why I have it here to show you. And of course the inside. I just love this little stamp that has the flowers and the leaves, and you can certainly color it in with your blends or your pastels or your markers, but I just like it even plain by itself. So I'm going to put this aside and show you how I made it. As always, I start with my basic white card base. And then this strip of paper is actually from the Expressions in Ink Designer Series paper. See the little gold on the other side, but we're using this one. And I cut that at 1¼ inches. And then from the card, one of the cards that's in the kit, one of the card bases, I cut just a strip, 1/4 inch by 4¼ inches, just to lay beside it because I felt like it needed that little bit of color there. So we will start by putting those on using my Stampin' Seal. Turn it this way so that I can get a better look and make sure it's straight. You can also use your multi-purpose liquid glue, which is what I'm going to use for the narrow strip because it is so narrow. And it's very strong glue, so I'm just going to put a few dots along the edge because I don't want to have it leak over the side or anything. So I just use a little bit because it is very strong and wonderful. And put that on. And then I think we'll do our stamping on the inside and get that done. So again, I just did that same stamp in Polished Pink. So I am using some other colors. So we'll get our stamping done. And here is that beautiful stamp. We'll stamp the inside and then that part will be finished. Love that. I love Polished Pink and I love that stamp. Then for the outside, I'm going to leave this aside because we're going to be using it. And I did the Sending Hugs, which comes with the kit. I stamped that in Just Jade because it coordinates with the paper. And even though this is Evening Evergreen and there's none in here, you can see how well it coordinates. So I took, this is one of the banners from the kit, one of the tags. And like I said, I'm going to pull in my Just Jade ink and stamp that sentiment. And we're going to center it in the middle so we can put a little flower on each side. So I'm going to pull in that Polished Pink and we're going to do one on one side and then clean it because I'm changing colors. Always clean in between if you're changing colors. And we're going to pull in another one of my in color favorites, Fresh Freesia. And we're going to stamp that on the other side, another flower. And so our tag is done and our stamping is actually done. So we'll set that aside for now too. And the next component we're going to bring in, like I said, is that gorgeous bouquet. And there is a right side and a wrong side, and you can tell because you can see the white lines on the front side, I guess, the top of the die cut. And here you won't see them raised, so you can see the difference. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And I'm going to use my blends. So I'm going to bring in a little scrap because the blends do tend to bleed. And I'm not going to color the whole thing on camera because that will take too long, but I will show you my process and explain the colors that I did use. So I'll bring in the blends, and I'm going to leave this here so that you can see also which ones I used. I'll start with the Polished Pink, which I forgot to pull over. So I used mostly the darks. This is dark Polished Pink for the large flower here, and it doesn't matter what orientation it's in. And I'm using the thicker end, and I can see, hopefully you can on camera too, but I can see right where the lines are. So I'm going right over the edges of the outline of that flower. And then you will see too where it meets up with some of the other flowers, and I'm going to try not to overlap them. So first I'm just kind of doing my outline, and then I'm going to fill in, and I will let you know, like I said, which colors I have used for each of the flowers and leaf components. And so then I just color in with my blends, and I love it. You can just be, I won't say sloppy, but you can be quick for sure. And I'm not doing any shading, and the reason that I'm not is that when you see the outline on the other side, it will look as though it's shaded, as though it has a lighter outline, and you didn't even have to do any shading work. So let me show you that. See, so it looks like we did it, even though we did not. I'm going to put just a little bit more pink right here. And it will take a little bit of time to dry. But I thought maybe I would need to use my heat tool, but I did not. I just gave it some time and let it dry. It doesn't take very long. And then the other colors I used, dark fresh freesia for the rose, just to give you a frame of reference. And I used dark pale papaya for the smaller roses here and here. And maybe I will turn it around so that you have the same orientation as what's on the card. That may make it easier. And I used dark Daffodil Delight. There's a smaller flower right there. I'm going to just do that one right now. Quick and easy. Oh, and for the center, I forgot to do the center. That's okay. So don't make my mistake. For the center of this flower, I did also use the Daffodil Delight there. Darn it, I forgot that. And then I have dark soft succulent, which I used for the larger leaves. So here and over here. I used light Bermuda Bay. That's one of the only exceptions. Light Bermuda Bay. And I believe I used it for these. And last but not least, I used dark Pool Party, and I used that on these leaves. So I am going to finish my coloring off camera and then be right back for the next step. All right, and now I have it colored and dried, and I basically just kind of did this to dry it right at the end. Most of the colors were dry. I did the fresh freesia last, and that's all I did was shake it out, and it looks good. So we have some nice, soft, subtle color. And for this, I'm going to put it on with using some multi-purpose liquid glue and my silicone craft mat, which I'm bringing in, and a little sponge. So I'm just putting some glue on my mat and taking my sponge, and then this is the front side. So again, I'm just putting some little dots of glue here on the back because it is vellum. I don't want it to show. So I'm just going to dab around, especially around the edges, and that will be good to go. I can lay it on my project. If I can get it off my mat. There we go. And that's why I use the mat, because it does get sticky. And it's curled a little bit, but it'll come right back where I want it. So I'm going to lay it on about here. So I want it to be along the edges and not go beyond the edge. And toward the top, because I want my sentiment at the bottom. And there we go. And for my sentiment, I'm going to use those mini dimensionals that came with the kit and put several on the back. And I've taken the backing off, and then I'm just going to place it along the bottom. And those dimensionals give it a little more interest. And then, of course, last but not least, we have to have our bling. So I'm using the adhesive backed sequins that come with the kit, and I'm going to grab my Take Your Pick tool and just slide a few on there. Draw your eye around the card. Placement is of your choosing, but I usually do 3 because odd numbers are more pleasing. And there's our first card, all finished. And again, don't forget to just do this on your envelope as well, to do that one stamp. So there is card number 1. All right, and here is card number 2. I love this card, but actually, like I often do, I did make some changes, so I'm going to show you what they are. And for this, I brought in the vellum, in color vellum cardstock, which has a beautiful shimmer to it. In fact, it is called In Color Shimmer Vellum. So it comes in all 5 of our in colors for 2021 to 2023. Fresh Freesia, Pale Papaya, Evening Evergreen, Polished Pink, and Soft Succulent. And hopefully you can see on camera, it's got this wonderful shimmer to it, and I thought that would be a great addition to a card. So that is what I used for this one. But like I said, I did change it up a little bit. So I'm going to put this aside and show you. I did use one of the card bases from the kit. So I'm just going to fold that and score it with my bone folder so it will lie nice and flat. And I think we will do our stamping first. But what I did for this, I also used another item from the suite, which is called Expressions in Ink Ephemera Pack. And it comes with 5 sheets that include all of these die cuts. And it also comes with some smaller adhesive back sequins that definitely coordinate with the ones in the paper pumpkin kit. So we are using some of these items for this card. And I wanted to show you how I did it. I wanted to use the larger outline from the ephemera pack. So I'm going to pull that out. And then you just have to take out the little pieces in between. And I'm sure if you wanted to, you could use those on another project, but that is for another day. So this is what I was left with. But I wanted to make an outline for it. And so what I did first is I took a scrap of my basic white and I just traced around the outside of it like this and cut it out. But you end up with the notches. And what I did to get around that, I took a piece of, I just happened to have a scrap of polished pink, so I used that. And I laid it on the cardstock and I drew a line and drew a line and then basically twisted and drew the line here and here, twisted one more time, drew the last line. So I had then a perfect hexagon and I cut that out as well. And that's what I used for my template. And in this case, I used polished pink, but I decided for this card, I wanted to use the Fresh Freesia. So this is the Fresh Freesia in color shimmer vellum. And you can see then it fits beautifully right on top. And I'm going to pull in, well, we'll do stamping first and then we'll do our inking. So that we're going to stamp in a moment. I also cut out, again from that shimmer vellum, the flower grouping also in the Fresh Freesia, so we're going to use that as well. And for this I used Evening Evergreen, and I actually cut it out from the card base, the Evening Evergreen card base. I cut that out, but I decided I wanted to use the shimmer vellum for that, and I put adhesive on the back. I used adhesive sheets on the back to make it easier, but I think actually in this case it may actually be easier to just use our multi-purpose liquid glue. So that's what I'm going to use on this, and we'll see how this goes. This does have adhesive on the back, but if it doesn't stick well enough, it should. Part of the problem was in peeling it off. Peeling it off of some of these can be a little challenging, but I think this is going to come off fine. But note to self, I actually by mistake had the shimmer on the other side. So do beware if you are going to, well, even when you cut them out, make sure the shimmery side is up because the other side is duller. And I'm going to live with that. I think that's fine even though there's no shimmer. But if you want that shimmer, just make sure you do that. So these are some of the components, and then I brought in also some components from the die cuts, the ephemera die cuts. So I'm just using a couple of those. So I have my 3 elements of gold then, and that was my thinking there. And let's do some stamping. We'll put these aside for now. I decided to use Best Wishes, which comes from the Artistically Inked stamp set, because I thought it would make a really beautiful wedding card. So that's what I was thinking. And I stamped it in the Evening Evergreen. And again, I was thinking that I would need to use my heat tool to dry this, but it didn't seem to need it. It just needed a few seconds to dry, and then it was fine. So I stamped that toward the top, and then it's very hard to see here, but I think it will be easier to see on this one. I took that cute little flower that we used on the last project, and I stamped it in Polished Pink, which I'm going to do again, and I think on the Fresh Freesia then it's going to show more. So now we're going to add this cute little leaf in Fresh Freesia, and hopefully it will show. And if not, no big deal. But it definitely does not show on there. The polished pink was just a little bit too dark. We're going to add one on each side just to give it a little bit of interest. Pull this to the side. I'm going to do it this way. And again, it will just take a second to dry. And we'll do the rest of our gluing while it's drying. Let me bring in that fresh Freesia again, because we are going to use it for the same stamp that we used on the other card on the inside. I'm going to do it on the front of the envelope. Whoops. That is why we like photopolymer. And lay that right back down there. Alright, so our envelope is done. And we're going to use it on the inside here as well. Much better that time. And then I also did, whoops, congratulations, in the polished pink, so I'll bring that back in. And for these longer photopolymer stamps, the best thing is to just lay it down and pick it up with your block so that you know it's straight. And we're going to stamp that at the top. And then again, we'll just bring in that little flower stamp and do it in fresh Freesia, one on each side. One here and one here. And our stamping is done. So now all we have is assembly. And I'm going to bring in my silicone craft mat again and my sponge. And we're going to put some more multi-purpose liquid adhesive. And we're going to use it on the back side of that gold hexagon. And I love it because the glue is nice and strong, so just a little bit will help it adhere. To the vellum, and it won't show, which is nice. I'm just going to place it right in there. Whoops. Move it just a little bit. That is the other reason we use the multi-purpose liquid glue, and it does want to move around some. I'm going to pick it up in my hand because I think that will be easier to get that top started. It is a little bit delicate. And then kind of work it around the sides. Oh, and it is sticking to each other just a little bit. So we'll do one at a time. There we go. There we go. And we have our tag, and then I'm going to keep this out. I'm going to add a little bit more glue and use it for first our leaves. Oh, that's right, this one I have the adhesive on, so I'm just going to peel. I peeled part of it off already yesterday, but I'm going to put a little glue on there. I'm afraid it won't stick because it's been sitting. And for the rest, I'm just going to peel off the adhesive sheets that I've got on the back. These are fabulous too. So I shouldn't have any trouble with this one. The flower, because it's so detailed, I had to sort of handle it a lot to get the adhesive off, and then the adhesive was on my fingers and not on the back. So that is why I decided to use the, whoops, adhesive sheet, or not use the adhesive sheet on the flower. I'm just going to lay this down. We'll see what it looks like with the soft succulent. And then press that. And like I said, if it's not, I don't need every single solitary edge to be down. In fact, if I don't do that, it makes it a little more 3D. That's okay. But if it's coming up too much, I'll add some adhesive to the back. And then I think we'll put the flower on next. Bring these down here. So again, just some multi-purpose liquid glue dabbed on the back. Doesn't have to be on every edge, but I want it to adhere. Mostly around the edges. And that one I just laid over it. And actually I'm not going to press it down on the right hand side until I put my tag, as I want that first. And the same thing, a little more glue. And it's nice because it won't show on the back of the vellum. I'm going to sneak that underneath. So it is more tone on tone with the fresh freesia, but I like it. Yeah, I like that. What do you think? Maybe it would have been better with the dark evergreen instead of the soft succulent for the leaves, but I don't know, I like them both. That's personal preference, I guess, but if you would like to put in the comments which one you like better, I'd love to hear it. And then actually we're going to use this one more time on this because it is small. A little bit of adhesive on the back, and then just pop that behind a little bit. And for this one, I think I'm just going to use my Stampin' Seal. So we'll take that out of the way because we are done with it. Grab my Stampin' Seal. I like the least amount of mess possible, so I use my Stampin' Seal whenever I can. And, well, see, I just got glue on that, but hopefully it won't show. I'm going to put it right under there. And I've got an adhesive eraser I can use on that as well. So we've got our 3 gold, but of course a card is not complete without bling. So for bling, we have 2 types of bling. One being the adhesive back sequins, which I'm going to use again. I love them. I'm going to end up using them all up. I think it's great. Grab that 3rd one, and we'll put it maybe down here. And then what I did for some added bling and to bring in some more gold, I used my metallic pearls. So we're going to add some pearls, maybe one here. Doesn't want to come off of my take your pick tool. There we go. And we'll add one to the center of the flower. And another one maybe down here. No, maybe not, since there's already some gold there. Maybe over here. So again, our eye is drawn around the card. And that is it. Our card is complete. I hope you like it. That is card number 2. And then we have one last card to go. All right, and this is our last card. And for this one, I wanted to do a fun fold. So I did a triangle fold card. And the only issue is slicing on the diagonal. When you use one sheet of cardstock, use half a sheet of cardstock actually to complete this. So you make 2 cards at once. You make 2 card bases at once. So I'm going to show you what the issue is with using your trimmer to cut this. So I'm going to move this aside for now so I can show you. And I have my trimmer. And the first part's very easy. Just like with any card, we're going to do some scoring. So sometimes, you know, we score it this on one side and sometimes on the other. Today we're going to score it both ways. So on the 8.5 side, 8.5 inch side, we're going to score it at 4 1/4 like we normally do. All right, and on the 11 inch side, we're going to do it at 5.5. So we've got score lines. Just move that aside, going in both directions. That's the easy part. But now what we need to do is score it on that long diagonal. And the problem is it doesn't really fit in the trimmer all the way. And in fact, I don't even know if you're going to see this on camera. I'm going to pull this down so you can at least see the top part, but it doesn't quite fit. What you do is put the point of each end, and I'm going to show you the bottom though. So the point here and then also up at the top, which you may not be able to see. I'm going to pull it back down. You may not even be able to see the bottom. I'm not sure. So I'm going to pull it down so you can at least see the top. Each point on the diagonal has to be in the channel where you cut. So that part is okay. And I'm actually going to move it down so that it comes on this side of that corner, and then the same thing on the bottom. It's going to come by that corner. So just so that you can see. And again, in the channel on both ends. And that's how you cut it. But the problem is, because it goes beyond the actual channel and it's sort of bumpy there, and this is in the way a little bit, it won't cut it completely through. So I'm going to try to see if we can do one end. And actually maybe I'm going to see if I can take out that scoring blade and maybe it will reach. Let's try that again. I think it will work. Let's see. Yes, I think it worked. It did work. So, or almost. So you might have a little bit that you need to snip, or I'm just going to break it off and then finish it with my scissors. There's just a little bit of something there. So it will work. So good, I'm glad. So that's the secret. Take out your scoring blade, and then you can fit it in. There's a little bit of a mark on each end, but that's not going to hurt the card. That way you can cut it on the diagonal, and then you have your 2 card bases. So let me take my trimmer out of the way because we don't need that anymore. And I'm going to move one aside because we're only going to make 1 card for today. And we're going to fold it. And again, burnish it with the bone folder. And the same thing with the other side. And so you have your option. You can open it this way, or you can turn it around and have it open this way. And I have to see which way I cut my paper because I already pre-cut it, and that's going to tell me which way it goes. So I would advise that. All I did was take a sheet, and this is actually 2 separate ones. You need 2 pieces that are 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. So you cut on the diagonal, but the problem is, because I wanted, you know, it's obviously the same pattern, and you cut it, and when you do that, it's not just a matter of flipping it over, because it's the wrong orientation when you do that. So hopefully that makes sense. In fact, let me show you one just so you know what I'm talking about. All right, here's an example. This is not exactly 4 inches wide. It is 4 inches wide. Okay, so we'll use this one. So 4 inches, and I want it by 5 1/4, so that's what I'm going to cut first. And we'll get the scoring blade out of the way. Let's make sure that's straight. Slice it. So we have our piece that's 4 1/4 by, or 4 by 5 1/4, excuse me. And we're going to do the same thing that we did cutting it on the diagonal. But we really need 2 pieces of paper, because what happens is, I'm going to show you, same thing, we're doing it point to point. Make sure, I'm going to put this in the frame so you can see it. Each of the points are in the channel, and it is easier if you kind of start from a little bit up from the point and then back the other way, because sometimes the point gets kind of dinged. But now you have your 2 pieces, but the problem is when you flip one, it's the wrong orientation. So you see what I mean? It doesn't sit like it's supposed to, like it does if it goes this way. So for that reason, you need 2 pieces of paper. And I believe I cut them on opposite diagonals. So keep that in mind. So for this one, I'm gonna move those aside. I wanted to open the card this way. So I've got one that's gonna go here, and the other one from the other sheet of paper goes here. So hopefully that makes sense to you. But actually the sticking point was being able to cut it all the way through, and we did that. So really, it's not hard. It's not a difficult card to make. It just takes a little thinking. So bringing back my sample, what you see is that I have the opposite sides of the same piece. So this piece was cut in half, one for this card and one for this one. and this piece was cut in half, one for each. So I take that back, what I said before, you do cut them on the same diagonal, and then you have 2 cards. All right, honestly, it's not as complicated as I'm making it out to be. And then I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue again, because that's the easiest, because we're going to do some lining up, and we want to make sure we've got a little bit of wiggle room. So for the top one, let's make sure that it's lined up correctly. So we've got a little bit of wiggle room, and worry more about the top and the side, because the diagonal, if it is off a little bit, it's not going to matter because we have lots of embellishments there, so it won't matter. And then this is our other piece. Flip it over, and I think for me this one was not quite exactly at the points, and so this one I'm going to have to fudge a little bit, but again, it worked on the other card, so I'm really not concerned. Oh, we got to the end of my liquid glue. Time for a new one. And we place this one. And again, I'm just going to hold it out like this because I want to make sure that it's positioned correctly here and here. And you can see it's off a little bit on the diagonal, but I'm not going to worry about that. And it does cover up pretty much that little mark, that little indentation that's made by the trimmer. So we don't have to worry about that either. So there we have the outside of our card. And then for the inside, I cut a piece that's also 4 by 5 1/4 in basic white, because we're going to use that in here. And actually, see, they do open different ways, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, it's really personal preference which way you do it. So it's good that I'm showing you both ways. Neither one is wrong. All right, for the envelope, I stamped the little cabbage rose in polished pink, and I'm going to do that again. Bring in my envelope, and we're going to do one on the front corner here. And then in the meantime, we're also going to do one on polished pink that we're going to use on the top. So here's my scrap of polished pink, and when I say scrap, I mean it. I save my scraps and get a lot of use out of them. Here's my polished pink cardstock. I think we'll move these out of the way and do our little rose first on the envelope, and then move that aside. One on the polished pink, which we're going to cut out. That's why it doesn't matter that it's a scrap. And on the bottom inside corner of the inside of the card. And then while we've got the polished pink out, I'm going to grab a tag from the kit. And I'm going to tag, and I'm going to stamp the hello from the artistically inked stamp set. And I will say, I meant to say this before, there are other sentiments that fit, like from the Paper Pumpkin kit, the one that says "You're amazing" fits in here. You can also do sending hugs. I did one, as I showed you on the sample that came with the kit. I actually did sending many hugs. Sending and hugs are on the same stamp. So all you have to do is you put a piece of washi tape or post-it note over the word hugs, ink up sending. Remember to take that off, the washi tape or the sticky note, and you stamp then at the top, clean the stamp, and then do the opposite. Cover up sending, ink up hugs, take the cover off, and put hugs on the bottom, and then there's a stamp that says many, so I put that in between at an angle. So there are different sentiments from both sets that will fit any of the tags, so that's another good thing to know. So I think that's it for our, for our polished pink. Next we're going to bring in Just Jade, so we can do that sentiment inside. I did happy birthday, and that again comes from the artistically inked stamp set. We're going to stamp that at the top, and then same as before, I did some of that cute little flower, one in fresh freesia, whoops, and one in Pale Papaya. We'll get this out of the way because we're done with it. And then I did the same thing on the tag on the front, as you can see. So we'll bring in fresh freesia. And do one here. And we'll do the other one here. And then clean it. And then the same thing with the Pale Papaya. All right, and now I've got a scrap of fresh freesia to do the larger flower. I think we'll move it like this. And then I'm going to cut that one and this one out with the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. If you need tips or tricks to how to use the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, I do have a video on that on my YouTube channel, so look for it. It's under Tools, under the Tools playlist. And I've got some different tips and tricks for how to use that machine. But I am going to cut these off camera and be right back. Oh, the other thing I did, and I already pre-cut, is the little 3-flower grouping, which is this, which is on one stamp. I stamped those on a scrap of pattern paper. I did one set without stamping first that looks like this, and then one stamp that has the 3 flowers, and the other one I use here. So we will see which one works better, but I already cut those out. So I'm going to cut the other ones out and be right back. All right, I have those cut out. And last but not least, we're going to bring in these components from the Paper Pumpkin kit. And sometimes you'll find that the little pieces in between kind of stay there, so just make sure you pull those out. And this is what I did to assemble them. So, well, let's start with the inside. We'll get that done. So I'm using my Stampin' Seal for that. And I'm going to put my hello on the bottom again with Stampin' Seal. I thought about using dimensionals, but I thought the card had enough dimension without it. So I'm just going to put that down in the corner. And next I'm going to assemble the pieces from the kit. I started with this piece because it has a nice big section here where we can put some glue dots on either side. So I started with this one, and I'm going to lay some glue dots right on the top of that section, several of them. All right, and now I've taken the paper backing off, and I'm going to take the next grouping and put that over the top. Whoops. So that they don't overlap. And again, going with the largest section. In the middle. And now I'm going to put some adhesive dots on the back. And I'm going to take the last section and place it underneath, again trying to kind of fill in the spaces where I would like flowers. Let's see which looks best, maybe this way. And then more glue dots on the bottom of this one. And then we're just going to decide how to line them up. On the card. I think that looks pretty good. And you just want to make sure that it goes on the top flap. So where you have your adhesive is going to go right on that top flap. So it overlaps both sections, but it doesn't impede opening the card. And then we're just going to layer these. I'm going to use Stampin' Seal on this, so it will help anchor everything too. and place that. And actually I should have said put it on one side, because again, you don't want adhesive on this side. You want it to be able to open freely. I think that'll be all right. And then layer your other flowers. And then for this one, this was the size that I used. Although I had stamped it, I think I'm going to use the ones that are stamped and just use the smaller one. So I'll grab another glue dot for that. And then last but not least, a little bling. I'm going to grab my Take Your Pick tool again, and we'll put some sequins on. And our card is complete. I hope you like all my paper pumpkin alternatives. Thanks so much for joining me. I do try to do at least one alternative project, mostly cards, but sometimes scrapbook pages, every single month, because I am, like you, a paper pumpkin subscriber. So feel free to click on the bell so you know when I post a video, and you'll know when I post the next paper pumpkin alternative. I've got lots of other cards and home decor, scrapbook pages, other ideas, so feel free to look around my channel. Please like and subscribe to it as well. And I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.